I don't know. No, I don't. All right. Morning blessings to the folks joining us via our live stream. Let's go ahead and start with prayer. Gracious Lord, bless us with your wisdom this day as we spend time in the word that you gave to us through the apostle. We pray that you would bless our time together and that you would cause us to grow in faith and wisdom. In the Son's name we pray. All right, so we are still in chapter 12, just rolling right along. Our discussion is going to pick up with 12:3 today, but we're going to go ahead and read 1 through 8 again. It's just good to have context for everything.
And you need a repetition.
Yes. All right, so if I can get somebody to read for us.
I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. For as in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function. So we, though many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another, having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us. Let us use them, prophecy in proportion to our faith. If service in our serving, the one who teaches in his teaching, the one who exhorts in his exhortation, the one who contributes in generosity, the one who leads with zeal, the one who does acts of mercy with cheerfulness.
All right. So, where we are is Paul is really now looking hard at what does it mean for the righteous to live by faith? So, he's spent time with us going, okay, so what's the establishment of righteousness? Those are like our first 6, 7 chapters. And then he starts addressing questions concerning God continuing to care for us now that we've been saved, and what about why some are saved and not others, and those kind of questions. And now he's going back to that righteous living faith and answering the question, okay, so what does that mean? And in this case, now he's talking about, all right, so we live according to the grace given to us. And here, he's really starting to touch on the idea, not everybody has been given the same grace. Not in that we're differently forgiven, but he's using grace in a different way. In this case, it's more along the lines of gift. So he's given us different realms of responsibility when we begin this. So when he's talking grace, he's not really talking, oh, we're each differently forgiven. That's not what he's saying. That forgiveness is same for everyone. It's complete and total. But he goes on and he's like, all right, but how we're going to live out that forgiven life is going to be different. And here he's starting to head off what is a typical problem for us. We like to make ourselves be more. We want to feel important. We want to feel recognized. We want to be celebrated for our accomplishments. And you know the saying, too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the soup?
She's not enough Indians.
Yeah. That can be a problem. And depending on which theory of time frame you would think Paul is writing these letters, he could have already been dealing with the issues of Corinth. In Corinth, the church there was dealing with a massive ego problem. There was a lot of infighting between the people trying to establish themselves as the greatest. And you can see it in the letter, and Paul's like, I'm so done with you guys over this. I'd stop it. Even to the point of Paul's going, look, I can speak more tongues than any of y'all, so stop it. Especially because even though I speak all these tongues, it does nobody look good if nobody understands what I'm saying. And the whole point is to benefit the people around you. You are able to speak in another language because another person who speaks that language can understand you. And it's for their benefit to be able to understand you. And he's not having to deal with quite the same ego problem that Corinth has, and that he doesn't really spend a lot of time. I mean, he spent almost an entire letter with Corinth. Here, he's just addressing, look, we can't have that. Yeah.
The study Bible thinks that Romans more or less.
All right, so he could have been in the midst of dealing with the issue. So I know there's like several different theories, and most of them they're just pious theories, and you can take them or leave them. But yeah,
at least in this case, this person is dating it.
Okay.
So Corinthians is in reference to Corinth.
Yeah, to the city of Corinth.
Which I guess I was just looking at this. It said he planted that congregation in the second missionary journey.
Yep. So anyhow, whether or not he has that in mind, it is an issue that every church is going to deal with. So it's a very general thing, and here he's just kind of, I'm getting out ahead of the curve and establishing, look, y'all are going to have different gifts that are going to benefit the body. So this is what he's talking about, by the grace that's been given to them. So in Paul's case, the grace that had been given to him is to communicate the faith to a broad spectrum of people. I mean, that's why he would be able to speak many tongues, because now he can talk to anybody and everybody he's going to come across in his journeys. And if you trace his journeys, he's going to all these major cities where you've got a lot of crossroads going on. And so it would be helpful to be able to communicate to everybody that you come across in these places. He was given the gift of language and rhetoric, and it shows up in his letters. So he was able to speak about the faith in an organized fashion and be able to communicate that to the churches. Timothy, on the other hand, we know he's an important figure in the history of the church, but we don't have a single bit of his writing. He's a pastor. In fact, most of what we know about Timothy is because of what Paul wrote. But he was a gifted pastor. That poor guy had a tough call. He had to serve in Corinth. But that was what he was called to do. So that the grace that he had was the grace of a pastor. And Paul here is going, all right, so each of us have been given grace to be a part of a single body. And so when he's going, all right, so so he's like, don't think more highly of yourself than you ought. Understand your place. And I know that has such a negative connotation, and particularly in Western thought, because none of us likes to be, pigeonholed into a particular place in society. But it's an understanding of what has God given to you. And rejoice in the role that you
Sometimes I suppose also that you might have the ability to do many things, but you're called to do, like right now, you're asked to do this particular thing, and maybe you could do other things, but that's not what you're called to at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the hardest things a pastor can have to do is tell another guy he shouldn't be a pastor. Because you don't like crushing people's thoughts and dreams. And we actually like to be able to identify new pastors. Because the church is always going to need pastors. And there can be cases where you're going to come across somebody who's really good at understanding the scriptures. They've got a great working understanding and even an ability to explain the scripture. But they don't have the temperament to be a pastor. They just are not going to be able to handle the stresses and the pressures and the various people handling that pastors are going to have to do. But they're excellent in their jobs and what they're doing. And so you tell them, well, we need highly educated lay people too. And you're great at doing this job. Go do this and speak Christ in your job. Yeah,
I was thinking, I had just read something recently about how that, there's a lot to be said for being, an amateur scholar, that if you're interested to study and delve in deep, it doesn't mean you need to go and be a professor, that, you can do that while being in a lot of jobs. Got options.
Yes. Yeah, and I cross paths with a lot of well-versed. I'm Brett. He was a well-versed layperson. He was one of those ones who could always ask me the really fun theological questions. And because he was operating at a higher level of understanding. But he was a great gardener, not a great pastor. And that's okay. And this is what Paul's saying. Not everybody has to be the head. In fact, really, we have one head, and none of us qualify for that job. Because that one head is Jesus. So as he's going on, he's like, all right, so verse 4, he really starts to pick up that idea of vocation. And we're all members of one body. And we each have roles to play in that body. It's like, if you're at the grace that was given to you is for prophecy, prophesy in proportion to the. If it's in service, serving. If it's teaching. If it's one who exhorts and builds up, be the one who does that. If you're the one who contributes, do so with generosity. All these different roles. And rejoice in them. Because you're all playing a role in building the body of Christ. It might not be flashy, but you're still playing a role. And the body needs it. we could look at history here. Everybody, a lot of people remember the generals in wars. They get all the blame, they get all the glory. But you know, George Patton wouldn't have been able to be George Patton if he didn't have a good supply officer. But nobody knows who his supply officer's name is. If George Patton's tanks didn't have the fuel, if they didn't have ammo, if his guys didn't have food to eat, the 3rd Armored Cavalry would have been a useless army. I'll pick on this one because John knows him. Captain Winters couldn't have been Captain Winters if he didn't have good sergeants. If you don't know who Captain Winters is, he was the commander of Easy Company, which is a very storied unit in World War II in the European theater. They were part of the airborne who were surrounded at Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge and held out. They were involved in the Normandy invasion. I mean, every single major campaign that happened in Europe, they were pretty much a part, at least after D-Day. They weren't involved in the African stuff. But he couldn't have been a good commander if he didn't have good sergeants. In fact, if you ever watch the show Band of Brothers, there's one show where it focuses in on one of the sergeants. And this guy's, he's just a spectacular leader and doesn't even realize he's the leader. And one of my favorite parts of that show is he's talking with the lieutenant after this major engagement, and the lieutenant starts talking about how Easy Company has always had a great leader, despite the fact they're officer. And you can, the lieutenant says, "You don't have a clue what I'm talking about, do you? It was you." And so this is the idea that Paul is trying to get across to us. To take what you've been given and do it well. Because it benefits the body of Christ. So those who live by faith are going to do what they do for the benefit of the people around them. So if you are able to teach well. Because you're going to give people what they need to hear and help them to understand things, in things that they thought were too complex for them to understand. If you can prophesy, to speak God's word for the benefit of the people around you, do so. If you're able to just come alongside people and help out in anything and everything, and do so. That's what he's doing. Essentially, what he's talking about is take the vocations, the callings God, and do great. If you're not familiar with the doctrine of vocation, the idea is God has placed various roles in our lives. And there are things like mom, student, pastor, father, engineer. And so it's not just like what jobs do you have, it's how do you interact with the people around you?
Citizen. Yeah,
citizen is another. In fact, he's actually going to get into that one a little bit more detail here in a bit. So all the different roles.
Just be the best that you can at whatever you.
Yeah, and you do it for their benefit. Not for the accolades. Not for the recognition. Not to build yourself up as someone great and wonderful and a person to be adored and worshipped. but just as a person who is actually doing what the body needs.
Contribute.
Yeah. And so that's where he's heading with this. He's like, you've been given all these different roles. Do them. So we have different functions within the body. And so, and we don't actually get to choose them. Those of you who know my background know that I didn't originally want to be a pastor. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to work at places like SeaWorld. That's what I wanted to do. Work on exotic animals. And here I am working with people, doing pastor stuff. I didn't pick it. But it is what it is. And I'm happy with it. So don't think that I'm treating this like that. I'd rather do anything but. It's just, I didn't think it was what I was cut out for. God knew better. Yeah, I was the kid who would hide behind the pillar rather than participate with my class and saying something or singing in front of people.
You do what you do because you believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So and yeah, I said, God's got it. I got to spend time in a windowless office, wondering if I'm doing the right thing. Start wondering if people have been talking to me over the years, going, have you ever thought about being a pastor? And I was like, maybe I could do it. I don't know. I don't think I can get up in front of people and speak. A week later, the pastor of the church asks if I could give a pre-prepared sermon while he was out of town at a pastor's conference, because I was the elder of the congregation, having done that 6 years. Not all of it is an undergrad. I was a grad student at the time. But I learned that I could actually speak in front of people.
Well, that's something that, I don't know if I should say this or not, but since I've met you and your wife, I've figured out that you could have done, both of you, anything you wanted to do and been successful. And, and made a lot of money, probably. But you chose to do this because you believe in God.
Yeah, and I haven't regretted a moment of it. Which isn't to say it's been all peaches and cream. If you want a challenging job, be a pastor. Yeah, and that's something, of course, our world doesn't understand. Not everybody is meant to be a pastor. In fact, most guys aren't even qualified to be a pastor. And it's not saying there's a lot of bad guys out there. It's just it takes a certain gift set.
Maybe it's the kind of thing that pastors are the end all be all. We need pastors, but we need a lot of other things too.
Yeah, we do. And like I said, we need educated lay people. We need guys who can, put stuff together. Lord knows, one of the things our congregation could use at times is an electrician or a plumber. Some people who know the trades. The church needs those people, just as they also need people who understand how to interact with society. Julie.
I was just thinking with the trades there, when I worked as a camp counselor at Camp Tacoma, that the guy who was kind of, I don't know, it's hard to describe. The guy who made everything work, honestly, I don't know what his title was, but that's what he did. That he had plumber certification, he had electrical certification, he had whatever certification he was able to change out the Freon or whatever it is in ACs and whatnot. So they didn't have to hire any of that out because he could do all of it. And that was a huge blessing. He was looking to retire. They're right, like that. It was going to be a very hard act to follow.
Yeah. So Paul hears the faithful live by their vocation, whatever they may be. So if the Lord's made you a mom, be a faithful mother. If the Lord's made you a brother, be a faithful brother. And so on and so forth. That's where he's going with this.
And you're also not, just one thing.
Yeah, we have multiple roles at the same time. All right, I think we've hammered away at that one long enough. Let's move on to 9 to 21.
Did you get the Chrysostom quote?
What?
Did you get the substance?
Oh, you want me to actually have that one?
Yeah, it looks good.
All right. Paul says, not that one person received more and another less of God's gift, but only that they are different. We all have different functions. The body is one and the same. I hope you caught my spell.
No, I didn't. I always assume you got the quotes correct, and I'll read those over.
Yeah, because I apparently can't type. It's not the body is on. It's the body is one and the same. If you're not familiar, John Chrysostom is a fourth century preacher. He was a very famous preacher, very articulate man. He's probably right now one of my favorites of the church fathers. Partly because he's just got away with words.
I was thinking that isn't Chrysostom like me golden mouth?
Yeah, golden tongue.
Golden tongue.
All right, let's jump on over to 12:9 through 21. If I can get somebody to read those for us, please. You kids can read too.
Come on, kids.
Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not be slothful in zeal, but fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Patient in tribulation. Constant in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Seek to show hospitality. Bless those who persecute. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty. Associate with the lowly. Never be conceited. Pay no one evil for evil. Give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, as far as it depends on you, peace with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves. Leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay. To the contrary, your enemy is hungry, feed him. He is thirsty. By so doing, you will heap coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil.
All right. So here, Paul is building upon what he's already been saying in regards to living vocation. He's going a little bit more into the weeds now. What does it mean to live according to your calling? And here he's still at a general level. Because the things that he's saying here really are stuff that everybody should be doing. It's not, we don't get to really pick and choose a lot. We basically get to pick and choose between good things But these are good things that we have to be doing all the time too.
I was thinking a lot of these are pretty rooted, like, directly in the.
Yes, they are rooted in the commandments, very much so. And we're going to see that as we get into some more of the nitty gritty. As Paul's going to reiterate that to love your neighbor is to fulfill the commandments. And that's going to be in the next chapter. So one of the things that I will point out here, and it's not necessarily where Paul's going, but it is an effect of where Paul's going. Paul is just basically saying, look, live the commandments. Here, so I can get wording right here. To love one another, to outdo each other in showing honor, be fervent in spirit, serve the Lord, rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, constant in prayer, help those, even bless those who persecute you, and rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Essentially, be a good neighbor to your neighbors around you. That's where Paul is going. There is an effect that happens by doing these things. You end up standing out. Because the things that Paul is going to be telling us on how the righteous live by faith is antithetical to how the world thinks things. The world picks up a little bit here and there. It doesn't really go full bore into it. And so people actually being genuinely good people, blessing their neighbors and helping regardless of whether or not they're good friends or not, whether they're important or not, all these different things, it's going to end up standing out. And there's a famous historical document that was written by Pliny the Younger.
I mean, I know he had the one about, all right, like, so they won't swear to Caesar. What should I do about this? Right? He might have.
I think it was Pliny who was complaining about how the Christians were showing up the Romans and doing good things. He was literally complaining about how we were the ones caring for their sick, we were the ones caring for their poor, we were the ones taking care of all these things, and the Romans were lazy and unwilling to help out people who needed help. And he was mad that the Romans were being outdone by these lowly people. He was complaining, and we Romans need to step it up. And you're letting these foolish Christians showing us noble Romans up. They were noted for the charitable work. And we stood out because of it. Yeah, Julie.
At least one letter, Paul's lines was actually from the Emperor Julian the Apostate to recent.
Okay.
Because Pliny the Younger is usually known for he had confirmation that Christians were facing the death penalty for not giving a of incense, and he actually wasn't super thrilled about it because they were good citizens and stuff, but like not doing the thing. So I guess this is what I'm doing. Am I doing right?
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I just remember the letter.
Yeah, so he's encouraged right pagans. We pagans ought to be doing good, all the virtues.
One of the things the church was known for is they went to the places where people would leave unwanted children to die of exposure. And the Christians would go out there, and when the babies were left, they'd pick up the babies and take them home and care for them. We're the ones who are operating the soup kitchens, basically. All these different things.
Things change.
Sort of. Now we expect the government to do it, but yeah. And the church has gotten kind of lazy in that regard because of that. There's a note that actually this wasn't just a note. This was an announcement Luther made, where he ripped his congregation up and down for not contributing to the poor box. And he said Christians should be ashamed of the government having to step in. Because, well, yes, the government could do it. It really should be the church. So these things are gonna stand out. We're going to look weird because we're not living according to the world's standards. We're living according to the standards of the God in whom we've been resurrected. And so he's like, look, do with it. Let your love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. So it's like, no matter what happens, hold fast to good. Don't give in to the temptation of the world, which is, do whatever works. Or let the ends justify the means. And so he's like, if you guys are going to do anything, be competitive about something. Be competitive about being, really good. Not the competitive of, trying to trash your opponent, but in just, keep stepping up your game. See the good example of one and try to step up your game. Right? That's one of the reasons why we do the commemorations of the saints. Is we look at these good things that the saints did and go, hey, let's step up our game. Let's be like, I'll use St. Valentine because we're coming up on Valentine's Day. Let's be like St. Valentine, who, even though he was sentenced to death, was about to die, was still expressing Christian love to people who were nominally his enemies. The patron saint of love for Valentine came about because he was expressing the gospel to the daughter of the jailer. And showing love to this person who really should not be considered a friend of his. And so that's how he ended up associated, with love and the like, because this letter that he just before he was executed. And so we could look at him and go, all right, how can we excel in loving people like St. Valentine did with this letter? Who in our life, who we would not consider a friend, be acting lovingly towards. So that's the idea that Paul here is going with. Right? If you see somebody who's doing great, step up your game. See how you can step up your game. The world will actually be a better place. I know it's hard to think. I know it's hard to do. But if you want society to be better, the place to start is be better yourself. don't wait for the other person to become better. Do you know what's going to happen if you do that? Society is going to stink more. So this is what Paul's going. Look, you know, we're called to follow the 10 Commandments. So let's do them, and let's do them awesomely. Because that's what the resurrected life looks like. This is what how the righteous live by faith. Is they live out this faith as awesomely as possible. So he's like, all right, so let's do it. Let's love, be genuine. Let's love each other with brotherly affection. Let's not be slothful in our zeal. Let's be fervent. Let's serve the Lord. Let's bless those who persecute us. Let's be humble. Let's be willing to associate with everybody regardless of station. All these kind of different things. So, because this is how we fulfill the 10 Commandments. And that's where I'm going to have to stop. We're out of time. And I really have no idea where that leaves me within these passages.
Right, I'm going to consider it to be finished through 13, and we'll start up on 14. You want to be like, no, I want to start back up on 10. Like, you covered a lot of the substance of the notes, but not a lot of the actual.
Yeah, okay.
So, I don't know, do you want to count that done, or are you like, no, I want to keep.
Well, probably reiterate.
Alright, so I'll count it as 10 then?
Yeah. Alright. Let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
All right. I read them. And then I read the Bible